Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Substack Live. I am so excited to be here with Lou. We are going to be talking about book talk strategy that actually works, and we have an advertising expert in the house. So this is not going to be vague advice about book talk. This is hopefully we're going to nail down some actual practical strategies that you can use. And Lou, give us the origin story. Like, what's your background that makes you an expert at this? And then tell us a little bit about your book.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually having a very funny love-hate with this moment in my life because my book behind me flipped around. I'll have to work on that. Is about my career in advertising and how it almost killed me, which is, it was a long and winding road. And now I'm in this position to advertise my book and relive some of those traumas, but in a healthier way. So it's kind of an ironic turn. But I talk about my career in the book, obviously pretty in depth, but to abbreviate it, the way I ended up in the advertising business was I answered an ad that ran on the back page of the Onion newspaper when they were still printing, and it was
Amazing.
advertising for. They were looking for students for the first year of an advertising school at Wyden and Kennedy in Portland, Oregon, which is the ad agency famously for Nike. And I answered an ad randomly, and 6 weeks later, moved from Jersey City, New Jersey, where I was living, and was in the first class of this ad school, which basically changed the direction of my life. That was about a little over 20 years ago. And then after I did that, ended up working at Wyden for a while after I graduated, then moving on to television at MTV, Comedy Central, and my last job in 2018 was at Facebook.
Amazing. I love that. I love and hate that. Okay.
Yes.
I'm on the level.
Same,
um,
same.
so, so, I mean, regardless of the feelings, like obviously working in advertising that long taught you a bunch. So how did it shape how you approach your book launch and social media and TikTok?
Yes, and thanks for asking me that question. And by the way, it is. I posted this on my Instagram. It's surreal that at this point in my life, and I love talking about it. I'm 52 years old. That I'm like somehow a TikTok expert. It's sort of hilarious to me. And I don't. By the way, I don't see myself that way. But I appreciate you asking me for my experience. And I just found out this weekend I started posting on TikTok at the end of November. I just hit over 1 million views on my videos since I
Wow.
started at the end of November. And I asked a really good friend of mine who's a social media expert, what does this mean? And he said, it means they own your brain. It means it's over for you. So I'm walking the line of being really happy about being public and using social media to sell my book, and also really struggling with it, to be very honest. And I'm
Yeah.
still I also want to say before I answer your question, not totally sure what it's going to mean for book sales. Like I'm going with my gut that people say having a platform influences the outcome of that.
Hmm.
And I'm seeing some evidence that, in a small way, I think that might be true, finding readers. But I think the jury is still out, right? So I'm still sort of in an experimental phase. But I think your question was like, what am I bringing from what I know? And I just would say
Yeah.
my answer to that is honesty.
Uh-huh.
But another very, unusual experience in my journey to becoming an advertising expert was coming up through Wyden and Kennedy, which really prided itself on finding like the kernel of truth in every brand and highlighting that. And I think that's very evidenced by their work. And for the layman, work like Nike that talks about human spirit or the
Mhm.
ways people navigate the world. But I used that strategy in nonprofit projects and endless brand projects and brought that insight into other work I did in television. And so, as counterintuitive as that might be for sort of how people think about marketing,
Yeah.
people sense when you're being honest. And I've just very much tried to bring as much truth of how I feel about the experience, truth about the things that I see in the world that I want to comment on, and not get so caught up in the like showiness of it and just more of
Uh-huh.
the truth of it.
That is not what I thought you were gonna say. I thought you were gonna give me something about KPIs or I don't know.
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
I think I think it works. And again, I came up in the ad school there, and that's sort of the way that I was brought up into the business. And look, there's other layers to this, of course, and how you spin the truth and where but I
Mhm.
do think, especially for authors and creative people, like my number one, like some friends have asked me, other writers have asked me, like, what are you doing? And, just trying to find the ways to be, it's just such a burned out word, but authentic in those
Yeah.
spaces, because that's the jump. I mean, I'm online way too much, and I know I only really want to spend time with people watching their things when I feel like there's some, kind of groundedness to what they're telling me.
Mhm.
So that's the first place. that I'm starting.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got this book incubating, and you're like, okay, how am I going to share this with people? And you do make in your 50s the surprising decision to go on TikTok, which I love. I'm right there with you. So, how did you get started on TikTok, and what was your initial strategy?
Well, I should say I've been on TikTok watching videos since 2020, and my screen
Oh,
time would tell you that. So that's probably an important. Sorry, my cat's down here. That's an important detail. So I'm very fluent in what travels, how people talk
uh-huh.
there, and I enjoyed a lot of it's a love hate, but I've spent ridiculous numbers of hours on the app. So I should say that I just never made anything content wise.
Yeah.
um, I think we both know patron saint of TikTok, Lee Stein, is a pal, and we would say her name with great
Yes.
respect and follow her, assertion that authors need to be building platforms, and I, took that to heart. And I think this is important to my story. I maybe made like oh, and then my book, covers many, many themes. It is about advertising. It's the shortest hand, but it's also about mother loss, early mother loss, and grief, and
Mhm.
it's about
Mhm.
fatness and beauty standards. And so I started to think about, just all the places that my book intersects with things I could talk about on the app. And
Mhm.
again, thanks to Lee, sort of just like, well, these are all things I want to talk about anyway. They're in my
Yeah.
book, so how can I speak out loud about them? So I started making a few videos about early mother loss. I think those were actually my first videos, because I saw it was on mother loss TikTok, and I was responding to some people, and I was like, oh, this isn't so bad. And then maybe like my 10th video, maybe less, I was so frustrated with having to be online, and I just opened my camera and I talked about how miserable I was having to sell my book online, and why can't I just be an artist, and this is who I am, and this is why I want you to know me. And it had like 35,000 views in like 24 hours,
That's
and like
insane.
thousands and thousands of people being like, me too, I've struggled as well in these ways. I have these kinds of careers and in marketing and whatnot, and I want you to hear your story. And it just went like, oh my God, I was totally frustrated. And again, goes back to the honesty of it.
It's
Like,
the authenticity. I know it seems almost cliche, but that's exact that so many people feel that.
yeah.
So,
So that's after that. And then I felt a little like more willing to like try. And then another sort of tidbit I wanted to throw in here with you is, and I don't know about your experience as a memoir author, but, you know, writing this book has been an exercise in placing myself on the page in really vulnerable
mhm,
ways.
mhm,
And I have really been surprised that the places that I'm finding I'm being vulnerable online are supporting this like eventual exposure. So it's not just my book drops June 9th. It's not just June 9th is the day that like all of this hits. It's like I'm having little stair steps and feeling people's responses. Not, not
mhm.
everything's positive, but generally positive, or sometimes things flop, no one responds. But it's like it's an exercise in I think especially for nonfiction and memoir
Yeah,
writers, like an exercise in what's it feel like to say this stuff out loud. So that's been another thing that's been driving
yeah.
my choice.
Well, I will also tell you my latest lesson, my pub date was April 1st, and I got there and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna keep this goes on for a year and a half or more. This goes on maybe for the rest of my life." Like, I was
Yes.
working towards this date, and the date really is never over.
Yeah, I'm starting to get the memo on that a little myself. I'm like, oh yeah. And I used to work in TV where it was like Monday night, 10 p.m.
Yeah,
Everybody must tune it. And I'm like, oh right, this isn't that. This is like,
yeah,
you hope in a month somebody resonates with the book, and then they let their friend borrow it, and that's in
yeah.
2 months. And then, like there's a longer
But
runway
people are
to it.
gonna be finding you hopefully in a year, or,
I hope
like,
so.
that's crazy. Okay, so you told us that early mother loss video really popped off. What other videos have been super popular, and did any of them surprise you? Are there any common themes?
I do a lot of videos about beauty culture in general. So I have another
Mhm.
video that has like almost 200,000 views. It's sort of me talking to myself as if I'm myself, but then also just kind of the pressure of the beauty industry
Yeah,
to
yeah.
change yourself. And I did a series of those that have been pretty popular. I have a video that I think might be peaking. at 110,000 views that I just did 2 days ago, where I have, this is maybe another suggestion for people who, especially in the nonfiction space, I look up advertising stories just to kind of get a beat on, like, I don't really want to be like a news person, but I think I'm interested in amplifying like trends or AI stories.
Uh-huh.
And there's this woman in Syracuse, New York, a lawyer who was told by an airport where she wanted to place an ad for her sexual harassment law firm that she couldn't use a tagline that she
I
wanted.
saw this, yes. And
Yeah,
there was
and it's
like 2 walls.
and so she won the case, and instead of doing her tiny ad, she bought 2 giant walls. And she actually responded to me today. I was really grateful. She said she was so happy for the amplification of her story, because I was a little nervous too. Like, it's the first time I've actually talked about an individual. I've talked about like corporate structures and
Uh-huh.
like beauty brands, but I was like, oh, I hope she wants this. As things started building, I was like, I hope
Yeah.
this isn't going counter to what she wanted. And luckily, she responded and said she was really grateful. And there's so many women and men in the comments like, Megan's the best. She's like an incredible person. So I would say also timely, just staying on top of some timely
Uh-huh.
responses. And I do think one thing I'm not sure about, again, further to like, is this going to really help my book sales? We'll find out. People, like, I do post directly about the book. Like, I unpacked my galley, and that was sweet. And some people who've been following me a while and
Mhm.
are really like deeply supportive, which I'm so grateful for, commented, but those don't travel as much,
Yeah.
really. And I talked to my publisher about that, and they were like, "Yeah, we hear that a lot." So it is a little bit of like, the spoonful of sugar, like, giving someone something that's valuable to them, entertaining, information, commiseration, and then, oh, I have a book, and sort of finding that like, balance. That's what I'm doing
Yeah,
anyway.
I think it is really tapping into those themes. I I did a bunch of book content, and what it did do was activate my existing audience, but,
Mm,
like, beyond that, which, I reminded them a million times to pre-order, and a lot of them did, but beyond that, in terms of finding new audience, I feel like what you're doing with tapping into the themes is exactly what you wanna do, and I also think you're a great example of, we always hear niche down or whatever.
mm.
You're like niching down in a holistic way. Like you're more than just your advertising experience, but you can kind of lean
Thanks.
into that. And
Mhm.
so I think that's a good lesson too for people.
Yeah, and I think there's so many ways, again, like we're talking about, and this is just one way. Like, I've befriended a woman who used to be in tech and talks about slow buying because she had a shopping addiction. And I love her, and she's on TikTok, but she's much more educational, and she cites,
Mhm.
studies, and that's her approach, and it really works for her, and that's her where she feels comfortable. So I also would just say, like, yes to what you said, and like, I think there's many ways people
Yeah.
can find out what they're the most comfortable with. Like, I'm not really seeing myself as an educator in the formal sense. Like, I want to illuminate certain things, but not from a like A to B to C. But some people
Mhm.
really find comfort in that, and I think that's cool too. So yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to find your niche and how you're comfortable in being in those spaces, for sure.
Yeah, totally. Okay, how much do you what's your current, like, logistical strategy? Like, do you plan your videos in advance? Do you script them? What are your formats that you love? What do you think about hooks? How often do you post? Any of those little details that
Oh
you
yeah,
wanna.
those kind of details. Well, this is where it gets tricky because you and I are both speaking as authors, and I'm really struggling right now with hanging on to my author identity. And all I want to do is write more books. And I'm going to answer your question, and I think it's a very fair question, but it's just tripping in my mind this thing of, how much time do I want to spend doing this? And I feel like right now, as my book is launching, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is the time to maybe. And I'm also working on a new book project, that's bubbling up, but I don't want it to sacrifice. I don't want
Yeah.
to be a content creator forever. I was just had a lunch with a friend of mine, and I was like, I don't know. He's like, like Little Nas actually, he would like do a bunch of social stuff, and everyone would be like, oh, he must have a new record. And I was like, oh, that's a really good reference. Like, we'll see if I'm like going to keep this pace. But
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
to answer your question, I do post every day. I post probably 3 or 4 times a day, which I don't know that you have to, but the way that I navigate
Same.
that is I've really just tried to only post when I'm motivated to post, and that way I feel like the videos too have a little less construction, and I think at least with the people that are watching my videos, they seem to resonate with that.
Uh-huh.
Like, I might have, like, a piece of food on my mouth or, like, I'm wearing a cat hair
I
shirt,
love
you know,
that.
and I'm like, "Oh, I just wanna talk about this one thing." I'm not totally being truthful, like, there's sometimes I script or think a little bit in advance, but generally, like, even the story about this lawyer in Syracuse, I saw the alert and I just picked up my phone, I was like, "Oh, I gotta talk about this." So, I try to find a couple beats in the day, to let myself be inspired and make something very quickly. I try not to spend too much time on that. I think a lot of time I've been spending, and this is, I think, what people need to think about themselves is how much time I respond and
Mhm.
try to build community with the audience that way. I know as somebody who's watched videos like that forever, like, so you leave comments on people's videos and you don't always expect to hear a response, but I'm just like a budding
Mhm.
author for like, I'm not a famous influencer, nor do I want to be. So I find myself a lot of responsibility to like engage with like 80% of the people who, even if
Yeah,
it's just a heart, and that takes, I would say that's what takes the most time.
it's exhausting.
um, but it's exhausting, but it's paying off. Like when I recorded my audiobook a couple weeks ago, I was feeling nervous and this was a little unusual. I just posted in the morning how I was feeling nervous and I could use a little support. And I think like, I don't know, 50 or 60 people were like, "We're rooting for you," and this and that. And it was just like, whoa, that's because I spend time in comments. And I also once or twice a week do like what we're doing. I'll just hop on live. And it's not super well attended. I mean, at most, 15 people hang out for a little
Yeah.
while. But I've gotten to know some of the people a little bit better, inviting me to their cities one day for
Mhm.
a tour. Again, this is all micro. I do not mean to give anyone the impression this is like a, mammoth, under like I have huge momentum, but the momentum that I do have from this, I would not have had if I wasn't doing this. And I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. Oh my god, that totally resonates with me. I also am, like, chomping at the bit to get to this second project that's in progress
Yeah.
and, you know, just deciding for yourself how much time you're gonna dedicate to this promotional period and what maintenance looks like for
Yeah.
yourself is what I'm trying to figure out. And then I think leaning into I like that you're kind of going with, what feels good, even if you're maybe showing up a little bit more than you would love to. I'm
Yeah.
sort of doing that in I would like to find a place in TikTok where I can do what feels right, but, I like podcasting. I like having conversations like this. I can do that without, wanting
Yeah.
to so that's what I'm, doing right now. Okay.
Wait, can I just say to that, I do
Yeah.
check in with myself. I ask myself, am I having fun? And I'm
Yeah.
mostly having, like, I'm like 85% having fun. And there's like 15% where it feels a little bit like, oh, and those days I'll post less. Like I know I said about 3 times a day. Like I've skipped a day here and there. And
Mhm.
I sometimes do drafts. Like if I'm feeling really excited about a few things, I'll like throw a few things in drafts and then just farm them out. But I am checking in on myself. Am I having fun? That would be a question I think. If I weren't having fun, I couldn't do it because it wouldn't be good for me and it wouldn't be good for anybody, I don't think. Like who wants to see somebody not having fun doing this kind of stuff? So um yeah. So I think that's a really good reminder in terms like you're doing the things you enjoy and it feels easy. And I
Yeah.
think that's a little bit of what's happening with me in this. I will say like I've started posting on Instagram a little bit more, and that feels like like it's ironic because I think as an older person, like more people my age range are
Uh-huh.
comfortable in Instagram, but it feels a little wild west in that people seem to care a lot more. Like it's a very like
Yeah.
TikTok feels a little more like I'm not delusional. Like think like the Syracuse paper thanked me for posting about the thing today, and I was like, whoa, I guess it reached them. And so I understand there's resonance there, but I posted some things on Instagram, and it's gotten a little like heady or long comments, and maybe people who wouldn't be readers. And I'm not like I'm trying to walk the line between being something that people want to discuss in current events, but like I'm trying to get you to the book. And so when things get a little off the rails, I'm like, that doesn't feel fun to me. I don't really want to be, pointing my fingers at things or
Yeah.
tagging random parties and like so it can feel a little overwhelming so in that space too. So I've been dabbling there, really mostly focusing on TikTok for that reason right now.
That's so interesting that you say that because I also feel like for some people, TikTok can feel more experimental because there's a
Yeah.
little more anonymity to it or, Yeah, at least I mean, my following that I've built on Instagram, which is way bigger than what I built on TikTok, is, people that know me more or people that have taken my classes or other authors that so,
Yeah.
there is something to that too. I When I teach my platform class, I'm always like, TikTok can be great because when you first start, you're just kind of like trying stuff out for strangers, and like that
Yeah.
is kind of a fun place to be.
Yeah, although there are people that know me on TikTok and they were there for a while before they made themselves known. So, but I agree with you. I agree with you that I think intrinsically, because Instagram, at least I don't know in your case, but in mine, right? Like Instagram, started as sharing what I had for lunch with my closest friends and
Yeah.
people I work with. And so I'm starting to, I mean, just told a friend the other week, I was like, Instagram's no longer about what I had for lunch or my vacation photos. Like it hasn't been for a minute, but I have to use it now for this purpose. And so you might see me being, you know, cringe on Instagram. You just gonna have
Yeah.
to deal with it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's still not my fate. I still haven't quite figured it out. And then obviously Substack is great and trying to be around here a little bit. But there definitely is I'm not arguing the point about the anonymity, but I would just say, every now and then I'll see somebody like something from a distant past and I'm like, okay, I guess they saw that weird thing. Okay, that's what they
Yeah,
said.
yeah,
There
and
they
I
are.
think especially as your, numbers grow over there, you're probably gonna have even more of that. So,
Yeah.
I guess just for me, because I'm so small at this point,
Yeah.
what's your relationship to trends on TikTok? Do you use them? Do you avoid them?
I've done a couple audio trends, like I did the 212 trend a couple times last week. So I've done a couple audio trends. So that's like where you put like, words on the screen and you use like a trending audio. Those sometimes get a fair amount of views, but not a lot of follows. I think they're very fluffy generally.
Mhm.
Um, so I use them to kind of fill out the account and just kind of be present and like around. Um, but I don't lean on them too much. No.
Okay. And then, yeah, you said it's hard to tell, which I totally people would be like, "How's the book launch going?" And I'm like, "Ask me in 3 months, no idea." Is it at all possible for you to track how this is translating to book sales at this point or not at all?
Well, my publisher provided me with a link so that I use on all my social media that I know that they can see who clicks through. And I haven't asked for those numbers yet because I'm trying to focus
Divorce
on the
yourself
things I
from
can
yeah.
control. Um, so I don't have exact numbers. That being said, pretty much like once or twice a day, again, whether this follows through, can't wait to read your book. I have it saved on Audible.
Oh, great.
Um, like my good read number is increasing, a couple hundred since last week. I think that's probably coming from social media. Again, the intention to buy, I don't know. People get them from the libraries, which we love libraries, so that's great. That's another way to be, engaging with the book. Um, so again, I'm not trying to give the impression of some astronomical number and I don't know, but I would say every day I hear one or two people talk about their excitement for the book. And so that's a beautiful thing to hear in this moment. I'm sure,
Mhm.
as you're in this kind of like very vulnerable moment of like, does anyone give a shit about what I'm doing and what's going to be the result of all this work? So I would say that too. Like it's sort of maybe the cart and horse of being vulnerable publicly as a memoirist. I think
Mhm.
there's also cart horse of like, well, today, this follower said that they were really excited about the book, so I can keep feeling happy about what I'm doing, or there's at least
Yeah.
somebody out there who this is resonating with. And I should say that too. Like my hope for the book is that it finds the right readers in the right place at the right time. And I don't personally have any attachment to a spreadsheet of numbers, and I want to keep it that way in my mind. I think
Yeah.
that's it. So using that as the matrix, like I'm doing great because every day I hear like a variety, again, small numbers, but um, it's out there and that feels great. So I don't really know how it's tracking, but I don't,
Yeah.
but it's enough a fuel for me to feel good.
Yeah, totally. Also, something that you said about libraries, which I didn't really think about. I wasn't at the beginning trying to encourage people to, but it's shockingly easy to request things, books
Yeah. Yeah.
from local libraries. And a few people have done that on my behalf.
Huge.
And they said, one person was like, I'm about to be a menace. I didn't even know I could do this. And my publisher said, there's never an issue with a library returning a book, and they pay more for the books, and so that's actually,
That's
I think,
awesome.
something that I'm just gonna keep mentioning more that I wasn't even thinking
Definitely.
about before. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because I use my library. I try to support fellow authors as much as I can, and I do quite a bit. But, look, I'm a reader, I'm a writer, and I engage with my library. I'm so grateful for them. And I love that readers are engaging with library. Like, yes, bless the libraries and the librarians. So I love that that's a great place to be. And so, yes, just to be clear, like some of it's pre sale and some of it's special events, da da da. But like, go to your libraries and request those books. That's another way to support authors, and it's huge.
Totally, and doesn't cost you anything if,
Exactly.
just to place that request, except for
Totally,
maybe 5
totally.
minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so this has been amazing. I guess you've given us a lot of tips, but kind of in closing, like, what's your number one tip? It can be mindset, it can be,
Mm.
actual, logistical strategy, but what would you recommend to writers who are thinking about getting on TikTok? They're a little bit nervous about it. What would you
Yeah.
say to
Well,
start?
I know you said one thing. I mean, I might have two because that's how I
That's
roll. One
okay.
again is I would underscore fun, like just what's a way that you can be approach it with fun. And I think
Mhm.
and I think that it can be fun. And what I think can be fun about it is again finding your readers. Like there is again, I wrote this book in a vacuum. I dreamt of people who might find it, but I couldn't picture them. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I tried to picture them. Obviously, I wrote a proposal, but I guess I'm saying like until I started meeting, you know, hearing from people who my story was resonating with, I couldn't really picture them. It's a gift. Like it's an incredible gift. And again, a gift as you go to launch, like you don't have to wait to find them, that's
Mhm.
pretty cool. So I'd say that would be, my number one tip. And then I would also say like find you wrote a book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, because of an interest that you have and that you're desperate. I mean, again, I would imagine you're desperate to connect with the universe, the world on. So if you think about social media and these outlets as just another way to again find audience for what you care about and speak more at length or in a different format about what you care about, I think it can feel overwhelming. Like, what do I even talk about? And it's like, well,
Yeah.
why did you write this book? So just farm your interests, your weird vision boards and your, notebooks and your the other authors you loved, or, the thing that happened when you were 5 that made you want to write this story. Like what informs your life. Like there's such I don't think I realized there's such low hanging fruit all the time because I'm interested in these things. That's not going to change. So it's just another way to say all this stuff. But I do want to say this too before we wrap. Like, it's a bummer that these things are owned by billionaires and,
Yeah.
we put all our attention in them and maybe we don't write our books and tell our stories because we're consuming shit all the time. Like, I have a super complicated relationship with all this stuff. And I do want to say that too. So I guess, but
Yes.
what that ties to what I just said is I want to make what I'm saying valuable
Uh-huh.
and in service of what I'm trying to accomplish with my book. Personally, that's my approach. Like I don't want to be time wasty. I don't want to be, just like a disassociation outlet. Like I want it to be fun, but I want it to be like, yeah, I'm getting my personal reason for being a creative person like in the soup here because while it's benefiting all these other people, like I want to try to find community in this kind of crazy time that we're in too.
Oh my god, the best way to wrap. Yes, such a good
Great.
reminder. Thank you so much. The book
Thanks.
is Don't Buy What I'm Selling. What's your pub date?
It's June 9th from Little Brown.
Okay, congratulations.
Thank you
Everyone
so
should
much.
pre-order.
Thank
Girl
you.
Gone Wild available now. And thank you guys so much for
Thank
attending
you.
this live. You can catch the replay on the Bleeder Substack. And Lou, I will see you on the other side.
Terrific. Thank you so much. Great. Thanks for having me.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.